Hello and welcome to this video. And today we're going to be talking about how you as parents out there can help these youth sports programs. And you don't need a clipboard, you don't need a whistle, you don't need to be a coach. There's lots of ways you can get involved and really help. And that's what we'll be discussing in this video. It's an important conversation that we need to have, and we want to be talking about why it matters, right? Why are we going to even have this conversation? And what are some of those roles that you can play as a parent? There's at least 5 other than coaching that you can have. And how can you recognize if you're ever crossing the line and playing that coaching role when that's really not your job? And why it's so important for you to be present and to be involved, and what we can do to really bring back youth sports, all that and more. That's what we'll be covering in this video. There's a sports psychologist, Dr. Nehru, who had done a study showing that parental involvement had a strong indication on the long-term health and well-being of young athletes. But beyond just that, their involvement is what is the lifeblood of community programs, right? Any community program, I don't care whether it's athletics or something to do with the arts, relies on parents volunteering. When I was heavily involved in scouting when my kids were little, it was the same parents involved in that who were involved in Little League, who were showing up for all the basketball practices. I was coaching with the same fathers and against the same fathers. And it was our involvement that made these leagues grow. I still remember one of the dads who said, "Man, this storage shed is like in sad shape." And got a bunch of dads together, so we fixed it up. So there's a good place for storage. Not only that, he's like, "Hey, let's go above and beyond. These are real little guys, but why don't we announce the games and stuff for them?" So he built a little extra roof, raised the roof so we could have a little place for some of the older kids even doing the announcing. Right? It was fun. Community involvement, taking care of the fields, the soccer fields and the baseball fields and all that. It's not always just the cities who are doing it. Fundraising, all these things. Parents, we need to be involved. It's us who make the leagues happen. There's lots of different roles parents can play outside of being a coach, right? It could be maintaining the equipment and being the one who distributes the uniforms and handles all of that stuff, taking that off the weighted shoulders, and some fundraising and communication. And if some of your leagues are local, but there's travel locally, the carpooling and making sure that nobody's left out, knowing that Johnny or somebody might have a hard time getting there. So you make a point of connecting with that family or connecting with that child, making sure that they feel like they're belonging, helping to set the tone with how the sportsmanship is done from the stands and all that. There are different roles with different people. And when you come together and you kind of assign, oh, how about, can I do this? Absolutely, yeah, do that. Scorekeepers, right? There are a lot of sports who want to keep some stats for kids, like to know their stats, right? As I did a lot of coaching, but some of the teams, I did scorekeeping. There's lots of ways that you guys can be involved, parents can get involved outside of coaching to help the team run well. And I think back to a Little League experience, and one of the reasons I was selecting the kids I was selecting, I knew the kids, but I knew their families, right? And when I knew I had a good core of families who'd help bring, the kids we didn't know that well in, it made that team, my kids will tell you, they had a ball on those Little League teams, right? We won, and they had fun outside. And to this day, they're friends with a number of these kids. One of the challenges that parents have is not crossing the line into coaching. Now, what I mean by that is you want, if you're involved in, particularly if you know the sport, but you aren't the head coach for whatever reason, which happened, especially as my boys moved up through the ranks, right? There was usually a father who's already coaching the team that they're now moving into. You need to kind of recognize your role, step back, and doesn't mean when you're home you aren't maybe helping them coach and teaching them some things, but you don't want to be showing up the coach necessarily and trying to coach right in the middle of the game and telling them that, oh, you should be stealing in that situation, or anything like that. When it's game management kind of things, back off, right? You need to begin to recognize when you are shouting instructions from the stands that you're kind of crossing that line. Again, I can still remember a time like uh, youth summer baseball. It was a quote travel team. This travel team only because we had to travel from one town to another town in order for us to have a summer league, because there was no other way to do that. And this father had organized this team and a bunch of other fathers. So it was the boys of summer, and we were 9 years old. They were going out and playing some baseball. And he was also coaching, and my son was on the team. And I saw him teaching cutoffs incorrectly. I had to bite my tongue, step back, and a conversation I had with my son is like, he's teaching you, he's the coach, do it that way. But, this is really the way it needs to be done. And when you and I are, and I'm coaching you on a different team, we'll show you the right way. But you watch, when we go see a high school game, college game, pro game, you watch them and you see how they do it. And you'll see it's not that way, right? So just he's got his reasons and whatever those are, but you'll respect that, and just, we'll teach you the right way later on. Parents who are involved and present and supportive, it's important to the kids. They know they're supported. And now I grew up and I never felt like I was unsupported, but my parents weren't necessarily showing up to all my games and cheering me on. They'd show up now and then, but they were making sure I got to practice. They were asking me about how the game went. They were encouraging me. They were present, letting me know that they were supporting me and, behind me, even if they weren't necessarily showing up to all the games. So you can show that presence without having to be at every single one of their games. And when you are, kids know it, they feel it, they have fun, some of the pressures are off, and it's the emotional support, encouragement, teaching, letting them learn on their own sometimes, understanding that they need to make mistakes and how they should be going about learning from those mistakes. Those sort of little coaching moments that can come from you as a parent are enormously beneficial, and they spill outside of the athletic arena. That's one of the most important things that come from both community sports and parental presence and involvement and encouragement, is the impact it has on friendships, your relationship with your child, their relationships with others, their self-confidence, things that will carry them through life, even though they may never even play a varsity sport even, right? There's certainly a high percentage of high school athletes don't even play college, but they've had that experience, and those experiences and lessons last them a lifetime. What youth sports needs from your parents is involvement, encouragement, right? We need you to volunteer, for the coaching, for field work, for fundraising, for team dinners, anything that you can do to make it fun, anything you do to help coordinate, bring in kids who might be falling through the cracks that you might know, being present, not just for your child, but for other kids, so that they had that opportunity. being the vocal person, being the one who's going out and trying to get things done so you can bring back these local, start new organizations if you have to. That is going to have an enormous impact on so many lives. We sometimes talk about a ripple effect. That's big ripples. And find like-minded parents, get yourselves involved, start rebuilding community sports, especially at the young level, and show them that you care not about just about them, but about your community as well. Well, that wraps up another video. I do encourage you, as always, to subscribe to this channel. You might want to check out another video, and that one is, do people make money from youth sports? Check that video out, and I'll see you in another.